I was 22, and in the middle of a spring break road trip with two friends when this happened. We'd planned the whole thing out. Zion, Bryce, Moab. We packed the car with camping gear, snacks, and way too much iced coffee. The trip you circle on the calendar and look forward to all year. Everything had gone smooth until that afternoon. We'd stopped at a remote trailhead in southern Utah, somewhere between Escalante and Boulder. There was no reception out there, but the views were insane. Jagged, red rock for miles. The kind of place that makes you feel like you're walking on Mars. I got tired halfway through the hike and told the girls I'd head back to the car. They were cool with it and gave me the keys. I figured I'd just chill in the car with the windows cracked until they came back. But after about 30 minutes, I remembered we were running low on gas when we'd pulled in. Stupidly, I decided I'd try to drive to the closest town to fill up and then circle back before sunset. The gas light had been on earlier, but I thought maybe I could make it. Big mistake. The car started fine, but within 10 minutes of bumping along this long, dusty back road, the fuel lights started flashing again. Then the engine started to sputter. I rolled to a stop near a patch of dried-out scrub and silence. Just like that, I was stranded. No bars on my phone, no idea how far the next gas station was. And the sun was already heading toward the cliffs. I felt that uneasy pit in my stomach start to grow. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, hoping someone would come by. Every time I thought I heard an engine, it was just the wind or the shifting metal of the car cooling down. I stepped out, paced around the car, checked the sky. Nothing but blue, fading to orange. The longer I waited, the more alone I felt. Finally, a vehicle appeared in the distance. I stood and waved both arms like crazy. It was an old rusted red pickup, the kind that looked like it belonged in a movie about desert outlaws. As it got closer, I could make out the driver, a guy somewhere in his 40s, maybe 50s. Dirty baseball cap, grimy beard, one arm out the window. He pulled up beside me and looked me up and down with this weird grin. "Ran out of gas?" he asked, leaning out. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound polite but firm. "Is there any chance you could help me get to a gas station? Or maybe give me a lift?" He laughed, not just a chuckle, a full laugh. The kind that makes you feel small. He shook his head and said, "That was dumb. Pretty girl like you should know better." Then, still grinning, he hit the gas and drove off. I just stood there with dust in my mouth, watching his taillights disappear around the bend. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. My chest was tight, my heart pounding like crazy as I walked back to the car. Then, it started getting colder. I got back in the car and locked the doors. Didn't want to waste battery running the AC, so I cracked the windows and tried to calm down. I kept thinking the girls would come back soon, that I'd hear the sound of their voices or the crunch of their hiking boots. But the sky kept getting darker, and the red rocks started turning purple, then black. The desert feels different at night. Bigger, emptier. Every sound feels closer. I kept seeing things move out of the corner of my eye, just brush shifting in the wind. But it didn't feel right. I tried turning on some music, but shut it off after 30 seconds. Even the sound of my own playlist felt too loud, like it was announcing I was here, alone. An hour passed, then 2. That's when I saw headlights coming back down the road. Same red truck, except this time, there was another person in the passenger seat. A guy wearing a hoodie, face shadowed. They pulled up slower this time. No words. The truck idled for a second, then rolled right next to my car. The driver leaned out and tapped the side of his door with a wrench. The guy in the hoodie got out with a flashlight. He walked up to my window and knocked, light in my face. I didn't move, didn't say a word. He knocked again, harder. Then the driver called out, "You sure you don't need help now?" My pulse was thumping in my neck. I kept my eyes down, hand on the lock, even though it was already down. I reached for the keys, but I'd already taken them out of the ignition hours ago. My fingers were shaking. My breathing was loud in my ears. That's when I remembered the horn. I slammed my hand into it over and over, just kept laying on it like a maniac. The guy with the flashlight stepped back. The driver shouted something I couldn't make out. Then the guy bolted, ran into the passenger seat like an animal, and the truck took off, just disappeared into the dark. I didn't stop honking for another minute, maybe two. Eventually, I saw headlights coming from the other direction. A park ranger truck. He pulled up beside me and I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost. The guy asked what happened. I just blurted it out, fast and all over the place. He looked around with his flashlight, but didn't see anyone. Then he said something that still messes with me. "Plenty of bad folks out here," he muttered, scanning the darkness. "If you're ever stuck like this again, you better have a plan. Don't go unprepared into places like this. Out here, help doesn't always come when you need it, and the wrong kind of people notice that fast." I never saw the red truck again. The girls got back about 20 minutes later. They'd figured I went for gas, then started hiking back when I didn't show up. We all rode back to town in the ranger's truck. Dead quiet. No one said much. Since then, I don't stop on empty roads. And I don't assume someone with a smile means help is coming. Some people laugh because they're nervous. Others laugh because they already know what they're going to do. I work in wildlife ecology, mostly on contract projects that have me in the field for weeks at a time. Back in May 2023, I was in central Colorado doing habitat mapping in some of the lesser trafficked parts of a national forest. My job was to record vegetation patterns along a remote trail system that had recently been expanded. I was genuinely excited to be out there alone. Just my gear, the open air, and a clipboard of checklists. Fieldwork like that always gave me a sense of purpose. No emails, no deadlines, just observation and data. It was a long solo hike, about 14 miles round trip. I'd parked my Subaru at a gravel pull-off just after sunrise, logged the waypoint into my handheld GPS, and headed out. Standard stuff. The air was clean and quiet, just the way I liked it. I saw fresh deer tracks, some fox scat, and a golden eagle circling over the ridge. There were no signs of human activity aside from faint boot prints likely left by a trail crew weeks earlier. Everything about the day felt routine until it didn't. The only thing I hadn't anticipated was how low my fuel was when I got back to the car. The gauge hovered just above E, and I had no signal to check how far the nearest town was. I remembered passing a ranger station maybe 10 miles back, and figured I'd just take it slow, conserve what I could, and head that way. I didn't panic, just took it as a minor logistical error. Worst case, I'd park at the station and wait for a ranger. I'd just gotten onto the main fire road when a white truck pulled up behind me, flashing its lights. I slowed and rolled to the side, thinking it might be a ranger. Sure enough, the truck had Forest Service markings, and a guy stepped out wearing the green pants and beige shirt you'd expect. He had a radio clipped to his belt and a patch on his sleeve. Looked legitimate. He was tall, maybe late 50s, lean, tanned like someone who spent most of his time outside. He wore aviators and had one of those thick white mustaches that made him look like someone's old coach. He moved slowly, like someone in no particular rush. "Afternoon," he said. "You having car trouble?" "Not yet," I replied. "But I'm low on gas and out of signal. Was about to backtrack to that ranger station." He nodded and said, "Station's closed today. I can run and grab some fuel from the depot for you. Won't take long." I thanked him, He seemed like a solid guy, polite, calm. But then he lingered by my window, eyes flicking between me and my car. "You out here alone?" I paused. "Yeah, just me." "Did you check in with anyone? Log your trip with the station or your company?" I hesitated. I just left a message with a coworker before starting the hike. I told him that. "Married?" he asked, like it was casual conversation. That's when something felt off. "Why do you ask?" He laughed. "Just wondering if someone's expecting you tonight. You don't want anyone worrying." His tone had changed. It still sounded friendly, but there was something behind it. Like he wasn't really interested in the answer. More like he was thinking out loud. I stepped back a little from the window and asked if I could see his ID. I wasn't confrontational, just trying to be cautious. That's when his demeanor shifted. Not aggressive, but less relaxed. He broke eye contact, scratched his neck and muttered, "Left it in the truck," while motioning vaguely behind him. "Mind if I take a look?" I asked. I've got to head out if I'm going to get you that gas," he said quickly, already walking backward toward the truck. He got in and drove off without another word. I stood there next to my car, adrenaline starting to rise. Something about that exchange wasn't right. I've worked with Rangers before. They don't ask personal questions like that, not unless there's a good reason. And they sure don't dodge ID requests. I decided to head to the station anyway. Closed or not, I needed to get away from that stretch of road. When I reached it, my stomach sank. The building was clearly abandoned. Shutters hung off the windows, paint peeled from the siding. The sign out front still read, "National Forest Ranger Station," but the lettering was sun-faded and chipped. The flagpole was bare. The place felt wrong. Like something out of a forgotten postcard. Out front, the same white truck, parked at an angle on the gravel. No plates. The windows were dark and the cab was empty. I didn't see anyone nearby. My first thought was to keep driving, but I made a note of the truck's dents and sticker markings just in case. I reversed immediately and drove until I had at least 2 bars of signal. Then I called my coworker, gave her my location, and told her exactly what had happened. She told me to come back to town right away and not to stop again. I also messaged a ranger contact I'd worked with the previous year. Told him everything. He sounded concerned and told me to head to the nearest field office and file a report. At the ranger kiosk, I described the man and the truck. The ranger on duty just blinked. "That station's been closed for 5 years, he said. "We haven't had fuel or staff up there since the 2018 budget cuts." A few days later, I gave a full statement to the county sheriff. They ran searches, but never found the man. No trucks matching that description were registered to the Forest Service. No uniforms had been checked out that day. Whoever he was, he hadn't left a trace. I still work in the field, still hike remote areas, but I'm different now. I double-check trip logs, I leave detailed routes with colleagues, I carry a beacon, and I trust my gut a lot more than I used to. Because not every uniform means safety, and sometimes the guy asking too many questions is the one you should have been asking about all along. I work remotely in software development, which means I get to work from anywhere. A blessing and a curse. Sometimes the pressure builds up, the Zoom calls start to blend together, and I just need to get out. That's when I go off-grid for a bit. Just a weekend with no signal, no screens, nothing digital. In April 2023, I booked a small rental cabin in western Montana. Just trees, snowmelt, and the sound of birds in the morning. It was about as remote as you could get without totally disappearing. No neighbors for miles, no traffic, no Wi-Fi. Just dirt roads, towering evergreens, and silence thick enough to hear your own thoughts. By Sunday afternoon, I felt more grounded than I had in months. I packed my bag, shut the place up, and started the drive back toward Missoula. The roads were slick from melting snow, and a few of the logging routes were still half frozen in places. About 40 minutes into the drive, on a winding stretch with no signage and only one set of tracks ahead of me, the engine started to stutter. At first I thought maybe it was the cold, but then the car jerked, sputtered, and coasted to a stop. I looked at the dashboard and felt this sinking, numb sort of regret. I was out of gas. I always plan carefully for these trips. I usually top off in town before heading into the woods. But this time, I'd driven around a lot more than usual, taking in side roads, grabbing groceries, even just driving to feel movement. I cursed under my breath and turned off the ignition. Tried my phone. No bars. Not even a flicker of signal. Nothing but gray clouds and a wall of pine trees. The only option was to walk. I remembered passing a small gas station on the way in, maybe 5 or 6 miles back. It was this old wooden place with a single pump, kind of run down but still operating. That became the mission. I locked up the car, tucked the keys into my backpack, and started walking with a half-full water bottle and a jacket that didn't quite keep out the wind. At first, it was fine. The road was quiet. I passed a patch of mule deer tracks and heard a woodpecker drilling somewhere nearby. Then, the sky darkened. The breeze picked up. By the time I hit mile 3, it was raining. Cold, stinging droplets that soaked straight through my clothes. By the time I reached the gas station, I was freezing and shaking. The man inside the store looked at me with a mix of concern and disbelief. He let me warm up inside, filled up a plastic gas can, and offered me a black trash bag to use as a poncho. I took it without hesitation and started the walk back. My sneakers squelched with every step. The return trip was harder. The road had turned to mud. My legs ached. The trees loomed over me like they were watching. It was early evening, but the clouds made it feel like nightfall was coming fast. I kept my head down, counting steps, trying not to think about how alone I was out there. When I rounded the final bend where my car should have been, something stopped me in my tracks. The headlights were on. That didn't make sense. I'd turned everything off. I was sure of it. Then I heard music, my car radio. It was playing an old song I hadn't cued in years, a song I used to listen to in college. Something was wrong. Then I saw him. A man was sitting in the front passenger seat. I didn't move. I stood there about 50 yards away, soaked to the skin and staring. He was facing forward, unmoving. Then he slowly turned his head toward me and smiled. Not a warm smile, not a friendly one. Just this small, empty curl of the mouth, a smile without joy. A smile meant only for me. My knees locked, my hand tightened around the gas can, then I turned and ran. Not down the road, not back the way I came. I ran straight into the woods. I didn't think, I didn't plan. I just moved. The forest floor was slick. Pine needles, roots, rocks. I tripped twice, caught myself on tree trunks, kept pushing. I could hear my own breath, loud, fast, panicked. Every so often I'd look back, expecting to see someone chasing, but I never did. Still, I didn't stop. I angled in what I hoped was the direction of the highway. I figured if I could find pavement, I'd find people. And if I found people, I'd be okay. After maybe 20 minutes, the trees broke. I stumbled out onto the shoulder of a 2-lane road. My clothes were filthy. My shoes were caked in mud. I stood there just breathing, not sure what to do next. A couple cars passed. One honked but didn't stop. Then a blue SUV slowed. The woman driving rolled down her window. "Are you all right?" she asked. I must have looked like hell. I told them I'd run out of gas and someone was in my car. The man in the passenger seat frowned and said they'd just come down that road, hadn't seen anyone. I didn't argue. I just asked if they'd take me to town. On the drive back, we passed the area where I'd left my car. It was gone. Just gone. Only wet tire marks remained. veering slightly toward the trees. They brought me to the sheriff's office. I filed a report, gave a description of the man, the car, everything. They were trying to be respectful, but I could tell they didn't really buy it. 2 days later, they called me. My car had been found abandoned 15 miles away, parked behind a grove of trees on an unmarked trail. All my stuff was gone, except for the gas can. It was sitting upright in the passenger seat, completely empty. Nothing else. No sightings, no surveillance footage, nothing. That smile still haunts me sometimes. The way he sat there, so calm, like he'd been waiting. Now, I keep a lockbox under my car. I carry a whistle and pepper spray. I leave a full itinerary with someone I trust, and I don't walk alone if I can help it, because I don't know who he was. But he was waiting for me to come back, and that's what scares me most. I run a small travel vlog on YouTube. Nothing massive, but it's steady. I post hiking routes, abandoned places, fall foliage, the kind of stuff that makes people want to leave the city for a weekend. By October 2022, I was deep into a series I called Tennessee Backwoods, filming solo for a week straight. All I had was the essentials: my car, a couple of GoPros, a drone, and a list of forgotten places I wanted to explore. That morning, I wrapped filming near a place called Deep Creek Bluff. Gorgeous spot, real hidden gem. I packed up, grabbed a few last drone shots, and got ready to head to the next town. GPS told me the closest gas station was 40 miles out. I was sitting just under a quarter tank. Normally, I wouldn't risk it. But I figured the route would slope down into town and I'd coast most of the way. About 10 minutes later, I passed a tiny general store that looked like it hadn't changed since bell-bottoms were a thing. Hand-painted signs, peeling wood. One of those old Coca-Cola thermometers nailed to the doorframe. Sitting out front was a guy who looked like part of the building. Gray beard, flannel shirt stained with engine grease, one leg propped up on a cooler. I pulled in and asked him if there was a faster way to get to the station on my map. He didn't say much, just pointed behind the store. "Fire Road," he said. "Cut you down by 15 miles. I asked if it was okay for a sedan. He gave a little shrug. "She'll make it. Might rattle your bones, but it's quicker." He walked me around the building and pointed to what looked more like a deer trail than a road. Rusted gate rolled aside. No signs. No markings. Just dirt disappearing into thick trees. I hesitated, but this was exactly the kind of thing my viewers liked. Unexpected detours, raw footage. I thanked him, got back in the car, and turned off the main road. The gravel lasted all of 3 minutes. After that, it was packed dirt with occasional rocks and deep puddles. The trees grew tighter. Branches scraped the roof. It felt like the forest was slowly swallowing the car. About 5 minutes in, my GPS froze. No signal. No map updates. Just a dot floating in a digital void. I still had enough daylight to make it through, and I told myself it would reconnect once I got closer to town. But the deeper I went, the worse it got. No intersections, no signs, just winding dirt through dense forest. A couple of deer crossed ahead of me. Once, I thought I saw an old, half-collapsed fence tucked back in the trees, but nothing else to suggest people had been out there recently. I must have gone 15 miles before the trees suddenly opened up into a clearing. And that's when I saw them. 4 men, standing in a line across the road like they were waiting. They weren't carrying tools or wearing reflective vests, no backpacks or coolers or camping gear. Just standing there. One of them held up a phone and started filming. I slowed down instinctively, trying to figure out what was happening. Was this a prank? A local YouTube crew? Something felt off. Another guy, tall and broad-shouldered, took a step toward my car. He wore a camouflage jacket, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His hands were empty. I eased into reverse, but my rear tires dipped into a soft patch of earth. A shallow ditch I hadn't noticed. When I hit the gas, the tires spun. The tall guy kept walking. The others started following. I didn't wait. I yanked the keys, grabbed my camera bag, and bailed out the driver's side. The woods were thick, but I plunged into them anyway. Branches slapped my arms. Thorns tore at my sleeves. I ran until I couldn't hear footsteps behind me anymore. Then I kept running. At some point I stopped and crouched under a deadfall, just long enough to catch my breath. The forest was heavy. Wet leaves muffled every sound. I kept listening for movement, but all I heard was my own breathing and the creak of trees swaying. I kept curled up under a rotting log the entire night, camera bag pressed against my chest like it could protect me. Every few minutes I thought I heard something, breathing, whispering, that phone, still recording. When the sun rose, the light looked gray and brittle, like it was struggling to break through the trees. I stayed hidden another hour just to be sure. Then I started walking. I had no real idea where I was, but I knew if I kept heading downhill I'd eventually hit a road. After what felt like forever, I found a trail marker nailed to a tree. Faded and half rotted, but it gave me hope. I followed it, hoping it led somewhere official. By mid-morning, I stumbled onto a ranger outpost. Mud from the knees down, twigs in my hair. I explained what happened. The ranger inside listened carefully. Then he frowned. "There's no fire road out that way," he said. "Not anymore. Used to be one. Back in the 80s. Mining access. But, that was shut down decades ago." He showed me a topo map. The area I described was just trees. No roads, no structures, not even trails. He called the sheriff. They sent a deputy. I gave my statement, showed my footage. They went out to the area, found the ditch, found tire tracks, but no gate, no men, no signs that anyone had been there at all. My car was found the next day, abandoned a few miles from where I'd run into the clearing. Nothing inside. Whoever those men were, they were waiting for someone to take the bait. And that night, it was me. I'm still out there filming and exploring weird places. But now I keep a full tank. I carry a satellite beacon. And I never, ever ask strangers for shortcuts. If a road isn't on the map, there's probably a reason for that. If running out of gas scared you, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tell me, what would you have done in these situations? There's more dread where that came from. Click now to watch 4 scary first day on the job horror stories. Because sometimes the real danger isn't on the road, it's behind the break room door. Stay sharp, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.